Hello friends on the VC, Dave Dark Dove coming back with another video. I know I put up a video about 3 days ago. That was to specifically show you a fantastic haul of free records which both myself and Ben Costello received from a good friend and seller. So this is my follow-up video. As I stated, I'm going to show you all the other stuff which I've picked up over the last month or so. So I'll get straight into it. Got quite a lot of interesting stuff to show from quite a wide range of genres. Starting off with post-punk industrial. This is a compilation album which I got at a recent record fair. It was the only item I picked up on the day because I was kind of broke. I spotted this. It was kind of pricey enough. I wouldn't exactly say I got it for a bargain or anything, but I was quite pleased to pick it up because this sort of stuff, this kind of original industrial vinyl stuff, it's quite hard enough to come across where I am really. So this is called You Bet We've Got Something Against You. It's on a label called Catexis Recordings. This came out in 1986 and it includes the likes of Current 93, David Tibet's group, and Ben, your friend Stephen Stapleton features on this because he is a long-term collaborator with Current 93. Also Princess Tiny Meat, who were an Irish group. They were formed by former drummer of Virgin Prunes, Benetti, as he was known then, or Daniel Figgis. So also Mark Stewart and the Mafia. Mark Stewart, formerly of the Pop Group. There's a couple of bands as well that I wasn't hugely familiar with. Jackhammer 5, who feature on side 1. That's quite an interesting tune. They sound very like a kind of harder edged Depeche Mode. The Dave Howard Singers, also a group I wasn't overly familiar with I Am a Bunny. That's a bit of an interesting one. Band of Holy Joy and Fini Tribe. The Anti-Group, who were a spin-off from who were they a spin-off from again? They were from Sheffield. Just their name just escapes me right now. Anyway, it's an excellent comp, and it's, as I said, I've grabbed it because you don't often come across kind of 80s industrial stuff very often. So there we go. Moving on. This is something I picked up just yesterday, as a matter of fact. I was going off to get some plastic sleeves for my free haul, which I showed in my last video, and I noticed that they had some jazz stuff in, and again I spotted something which I don't tend to see very often in the wild, and that is Sun Ra, the Sun Ra Arkestra. And this is the Heliocentric Worlds of Sun Ra, Volume 2. This is from 1966, I believe. It's on Fontana. And this is a Dutch pressing, Netherlands press. So Sun Ra, so this is just cosmic space free jazz. Really nice condition as well. I have to show you the cover. This is a really interesting cover on this. Just stick that back in. It's 2 seconds. Yeah, the cover basically shows what appears to be a this what looks like a medieval or perhaps Renaissance era chart, and at the bottom they have a lineup of scientific and astrological figures, among them Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo, Tycho Brahe, who, by the way, I saw his tomb in Prague, and in the middle they have Sun Ra himself. So that's quite funny. Yeah, but that's great album, and not an easy listen, I have to say, but I'm getting more and more into free jazz, and I just had to grab this when I saw it. Moving on to more jazz. The Billy Cobham George Duke Band, and this is live in Europe. So it's this is from '76 on Atlantic. Again, quite an interesting cover. Very freaky. There's kind of disembodied heads on hands. It's quite a strange thought that I actually met Billy Cobham and shook his hand last year after his concert here in Cork, so it's quite strange to see this kind of freaky representation of his hand there. So a great funky album. Billy Cobham and the sadly the late George Duke. So they this is a great live album, and it's one it's been shown quite a lot in the VC, so I'm sure quite a lot of you have it already. Now this is another album which I'm sure loads of you have, and I'm sure you've all seen it, and I mean if you haven't seen it, you must have been living under a rock. But it's one that I hadn't managed to pick up for the main reason that it's an album that you come across all the time, but I always found that it always happens to be in very poor condition, always trashed. So it's the songs of Leonard Cohen. This copy I came across, which, I mean, it's not in fantastic condition, but it is definitely in I would say acceptable condition. You can play it. I mean, there's a little bit of surface noise, but it's certainly playable. It's just I've come across numerous copies of it in the past, and it just always seems to be thrashed. It's just one of those albums that just people just play it to death. So it's like finding a decent copy. I've always found myself personally, I don't know if anyone else has had the same experience. It's always been, you know, difficult to find a pretty good copy, but at last I have an acceptable copy of this classic album. Moving on, now this is another familiar album, which I suppose really doesn't need any introduction. Tommy, The Who. I just happened to spot this when I was out and about. I know this album primarily through the movie, which I love, the Ken Russell movie from '75. I think this is a UK first pressing. It's on track record, I got it reasonably cheap. And I think the reason why was that the sleeve is in pretty poor shape. I'll show you there now. There's a lot. It's like held together with sellotape. This is kind of all torn there, and I'm pretty sure it is a first pressing, but there's no booklet with it, which would have come with the first press. I imagine it might have been ripped out at some point, but it is laminated. All of the panels on it are laminated, so which would indicate that it is a first pressing. The vinyl is in pretty okay condition. It's pretty good. I've cleaned it. It did need a clean, but it plays really nicely. So it's just a shame about the sleeve, but I did get it for a good enough price, I think. Okay, moving on. Okay, so this is for those of you, I suppose most of you probably Ben Costello, you'll be familiar with this, but many of you may not be familiar with Sean O'Riada. He was a pivotal figure in Irish traditional music. He came from here in Cork, where I'm living. He was a multi-talented individual. He composed classical, modern classical. He was a gifted jazz pianist. He died at the age of 40 in 1971. This was recorded just some months before he died, and it was played on. It was his arrangement of traditional Irish tunes on the harpsichord. Actually, the same one which is shown here on the cover. It's on Clada Records, and I'll just show it you there. So his records are hard enough to come across. They can be difficult enough to find. So I was quite happy to find this. This is my first Riada record. So we're pleased to find that. In the same shop, I picked up another Irish record in the folk genre. This is the Johnstons. This was released in 1968 on the Transatlantic label. And Jimmy Earl of Suave, you'll recognize that guy there with the glasses because you met him when you were over here in Ireland last. So that is Paul Brady, who has gone on to bigger, if not necessarily better things. He was a pivotal figure in the Irish folk music movement in the 60s and 70s, but he since gone on to be a successful singer-songwriter. But for anybody who you just ask Ben Costello, because he really is kind of VC's resident expert when it comes to Irish folk music. Staying with Irish folk, this is something which I picked up in a charity shop. This is a band called Spud. They were an Irish band who were active in the early to mid 70s. This is called The Happy Handful. So this came out on Philips in 1975. Somewhat reminiscent of Horselips. It's a mixture of folk and rock. There's some nice kind of funky wah-wah guitar on some of the tracks here, which is something you wouldn't often hear in this particular genre. The sleeve is not in great condition, but the record itself is perfect. Now here's the next two items are quite interesting. I found them both in the same store on different days. Now this is by Lowe, and this is called Things We Things We Lost in the Fire. Now Lowe are one of those groups who have kind of passed me by a bit. I've been aware of them, but I've never really kind of explored their music in any great in any great depth up to now. I came across this. I recognise the name Lowe, and it was actually I got this for €8, which, you know, considering this is an album which was released in 2001, was a pretty good price. So they're referred to as slowcore. It's kind of folk, kind of dark folk, I suppose you could say. This is quite an interesting release, because it's as I said, it came out in 2001. It's a double album, but on sorry, what label is it again? The Tugboat Records. It's a double album, but it's actually kind of one side of the second disc is actually has the lyrics etched into it, as you can see there. So it's like you can't actually play this side, as you can imagine, but it just has all this minute etching, as you can see there. Now, another interesting thing about this particular record is that it's actually signed by Alan Sparhawk, who is the frontman of Lowe. And I did a bit of online research, and Lowe did actually play a couple of shows here in Cork in the last 2 years. So I would imagine it would have been signed at that at one of those shows. Now I went back browsing in the same record store a few days later, and lo and behold, another release by Lowe. This is Songs for a Dead Pilot. It's from 1997, and this is a mini album. And lo and behold, it does appear again to be signed by Alan Sparhawk. And again, I got this for a pretty good price. I think the shop where I got it, the guy running the shop is quite elderly, and he knows the price now of something like stuff from the 60s, 70s, very kind of well-known stuff. But when it comes to kind of more recent or kind of more obscure kind of stuff like this, I'd say he's probably not familiar with it. He just stuck a random price on it. So I got both this and the other album for a lot less than what you'd expect to pay for, you know, LPs from the 90s and early 90s. So very happy with that. Okay, we're running to 20 minutes. I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks. So this is probably the last video update before Christmas. So a very happy Christmas, a very happy holiday to everybody on the VC, to all my regular watchers and new subscribers. So I'll leave it on that note. So until next time, have a very happy Christmas and a prosperous New Year.